our lunch, and it is not lunchtime. And that just signals to you that this is going to be a different kind of podcast. We're live for the very first time, coming to you from Geekdom, where our offices are located. And today we're going to talk about college football because it is, in my opinion, kickoff day. We've got a good game tonight, LSU and Florida State. I'm from Baton Rouge, is where I was born, so I love LSU, except when they're playing my team, the Crimson Tide, which go ahead and play that. Let's go ahead and get it out there. But everybody loves college football, and those of you, which I hope I got your attention, you may be a Texas fan, you may be an Aggie, you may be TCU. There's no SMU fans anymore, but just kidding. It is something that binds us together as a country and as institutions, and can be pretty dramatic on and off the field. Today, we're going to talk about NIL. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's name, image, and likeness, because it is changing the way deals are done in college football. And we're going to go through here and talk about the things that you may not realize about NIL, including things that have changed as recently as last month. It is August, so I'm talking about July. And then what I'm really excited about is I've got Mike Taylor from Mike Taylor Live. He was with iHeart for 15 years. He is an amazing sports guy that I get to kind of live my dream of being and bantering about sports, NIL specifically. And we're going to bring Mike on and talk about what he sees from his vantage point. But before we do, let's talk about NIL and make sure everybody understands really what we're talking about. Everybody thinks this is the way that you grab a player and pay them to play college sports. It's not supposed to be. And we're going to talk about how it's not really supposed to be that way, but we all know that's kind of what it is. But let's talk about legally what it is real quick. So name, image, and likeness. If you go back to the Reggie Bush days and then bring all the way forward to the Johnny Manziel days, which I'm that kind of guy too. Sorry, side note, it's going to be that kind of day. How come Johnny Manziel comes out and says, oh, yeah, I was getting paid all this money for autographs. He gets to keep his Heisman, but Reggie doesn't? I'm part of the Bring It Back for Reggie movement. But anyway, that is what it is. But anyway, going back to those days, these guys and players were, coming in and making universities millions, I mean, tens of millions of dollars, and getting paid not much. The stories used to be out there, and I think they kind of are a little bit, is these guys were coming out playing. They were household names that were out there, but they were, barely had enough money to go to the grocery store and get food outside of campus. Now, onside of campus, they're in multi-million facilities, but still, these guys were coming from lower socioeconomic areas, and they, weren't getting any money while the universities were making a fortune and the sponsors were making a fortune off of their back. So NIL comes in to try to make it so that way there's an even playing field where these athletes can actually get money for the fact of who they are and their name, image, and likeness. And at its most simplistic level, I think it's a good thing. I mean, these kids are athletes. Their value is only for a limited amount of time. And this allows them to actually cash on it. So I think the intent was there. The NCAA, a couple of years ago now, 2021, comes in and says, okay, now we can have the ability for a collegiate athlete to be paid for services and their name, image, and likeness in production with those services. And we're off. And let's, Gabe, put up there on the screen real quick. The process becomes of how an athlete now gets a deal. And so if you kind of look at this, if it's on your screen, it's a little bit further away from me. At the end of the day, they're being paid for some sort of service that they're doing. They can't use their institution's uniform and those sort of things. And you'll see on there the big no, which is pay for play. The other thing is it can't be there to induce an athlete to actually go to that university or that institution as the NCAA. You can take that off now for me, Gabe. Thanks. So it's not supposed to be like this inducement. It's not supposed to be this pay to play type thing. But let's be honest, we're hearing about these things left and right. Lane Kiffin's coming out and saying he's seen the goods. Sorry, Aggies. We're going to have to go into that a little bit because there's not a whole lot of guidance that's out there. And what the NCAA has said is outside of those two big rules, you either follow the rules of the NCAA or you have to follow the state rules that are out there. And so then you go, okay, well, now we got to look and say, what are the limitations? Because there's not a whole lot coming out of the NCAA right now. And so, Gabe, bring up that next sheet. And this is literally from today up to date. The purple shows you who actually has an NIL state law. Every single one of these laws are different. And then the gray tells you who doesn't have a state law. And if you notice on there, and I've mentioned it already, but if you're just joining us, Alabama does not have a state law that's out there. Play that music for me real quick. I'm just getting hyped up. I know the real game is next week against Texas. That's okay. I'm going to calm down a little bit. The interesting thing why Alabama doesn't have a state law is they actually repealed it because the state law was more restrictive than what actually the NCAA promulgated. A bunch of states went out there and said, well, if we do the state law, then basically the NCAA is going to kind of find what we do and we can define it for the NCAA. Well, the NCAA basically said, here's the general rules. States, you guys take care of it by the state laws. And Texas has their law, and we'll talk about it in a second. Gabe, you can take that off for me. You saw in there, too, there was this blue proposed federal law because what's going on at the state level is the states are creating some requirements with regard to what can constitute a school activity or institution activity where somebody can actually come on in there. All right. Sorry about that. It's live. So we've got some technical stuff. So the states are coming in and saying, all right, here's what institutional activity is. Again, because there wasn't a lot of guidance that was out there going on. And did you see that was coming on? That's all right. Sorry, we're having some technical difficulty. So in the state of Texas, let me come back to this one more time. It's live. See, when we do this, I'm recording this stuff, you never see that this stuff kind of happens, but we've had lights fall and everything else. So we'll keep going with it. But in the state of Texas, like other states, they're defining what is actually a school activity, what is not a school activity. There's some requirements like in the state of Texas for financial counseling or workshops on what they have to do. But an interesting thing took place in Texas and California, I think Kentucky and some other states, where they basically tried to pass a law that says the NCAA can't actually enforce something against a state institution or any institution in the state and go against them. So that way they became preemptive of what the NCAA said. And the NCAA had to come out and say, hey, the NCAA is a voluntary organization. So as long as you're a part of this voluntary organization, you're going to be bound by the rules that we give that are out there. And again, there's this, I don't know, cat and mouse game going on with states, institutions in the NCAA. So what we've now got is this federal law that's out here. And the federal law, which was brought by Tommy Tuberville, and I'm so glad I do not have Auburn's fight music, because as an Alabama fan, I'm not a Tommy Tuberville fan. But whatever, Tommy Tuberville and I forget who the co-sponsor was. They've brought some more bills that are out here. And I was just looking up kind of what the state of those on now. And at a federal level, which would basically wrap up all those state laws and say, here's the federal law for NIL, they would actually create requirements that say that someone could not get an NIL deal until they have completed at least one semester of coursework. Well, why would they do that? Well, the reality is that law is you actually can't offer someone a deal to induce them to get in. But then once they enroll, they get the deal. Well, how do you really know how they knew about the deal? Because now you can have agents. This is another part of the NIL law that says you can have agents let's be honest, inducements are out there. People are at least getting a whisper deal of, hey, come to this state. I'm not going to lie. Alabama, they probably do too. Did Kool-Aid McKinstry know he was going to get his Kool-Aid deal before he got to Alabama? I don't know. But let's be honest, if unless you put in some rules like this federal law that says you've got to wait one semester, then you get paid, it kind of creates this inducement game that's out there. And as much as we'd love to have Lane Kiffin come on the show with us, along with Mike Taylor, maybe to tell us what he knows, that's not happening. That's okay. That's all right. Some other things that are interesting that are out there with regard to the NIL law is this disclosure requirements. Now, these are private contracts. And so, as a lawyer, we do private contracts all day long. We're buying, selling. We do sponsorship deals for organizations, for individuals. In full transparency, we've talked to a lot of people about NIL deals. Actually, haven't done one here. That's okay. But these are just private sponsorship contracts, which we've done. We've done big ones. We've done small ones. And what's been going on, and Texas kind of addressed this too, is well, if this is a private deal, as long as it hasn't violated a law, as long as, this shouldn't be something that's public. And there was some people, probably Alabama people too, that were starting to dig into Texas A&M and all those number one recruiting class. They started doing what's called FOIA requests, which is Freedom of Information Act, where you can go to the public government and say, hey, I get to see this because you are the government or you're a state institution, so there has to be transparency. Well, the law that was signed into effect by the governor here in the state of Texas, those are things you can't get through a FOIA request, it appears, because these are private contracts. Move this over to the federal government, where the federal government, the bills that are out there, says you actually must disclose to the contracts to the schools within 30 days, because some requirements, the NCAA says they're supposed to know, but they're trying to make it a federal law that's out there. And again, this is a voluntary organization, so they're trying to create federal requirements of disclosure, which I'm going to bet you create some sort of transparency about the institutions having to pay for it. But follow this for a second, and then I'm going to get off my rant and bring in the guy that everybody wants to talk to, including me. The draft Senate bill says that violations would be treated as unfair and deceptive acts under the Federal Trade Commission Act. And by making the NCAA the watchdog for the law that they're going to put in place, they're going to require the NCAA to refer violations to the FTC. Now, let's kind of get this on here. Is you're talking about deceptive acts being a federal law. Could you imagine having a federal case against you that's dealing with recruiting and these, NIL deals and getting these kids tied up and getting these boosters tied up in these collectives? It's big. And in my opinion here, what I think we are going to see here is we're going to see the federal government intervene on this, because if not, it is literally the Wild West with regard to these deals and boosters and inducements that aren't inducements and pay to play, which aren't pay to play, and those sort of things. So it's an interesting time. So anyway, that just gets you up to speed. It's an interesting time in college football, especially coming into here where my Tide is ranked the number 4. Although Kirk Herbstreit says number 1. Love that. We're going to bring in now here Mike Taylor, and we're trying this live for the first time. So if it doesn't work, there it is. This is great.
Okay.
Mike, thanks so much for coming on here.
Sure, Matt. Can you hear me? Can you see me?
Gotcha. I
Cool.
can see. Looks wonderful. I got to turn my lights down here, but you look great.
Thank you, man. I got sunlight and I got dogs. I try to get my dogs out of the room, so we should be quiet.
Hey, as long as they're not Georgia fans, I mean, get them out now, because we don't want any Georgia fans coming in.
No. These dogs are born and raised in the great state of Texas. They didn't just decide to be Georgia fans to make their life easier. They're not that kind of dog. For sure.
That's right. And these fair weather fans that just jump from, institution to institution, organization to organization. So welcome back, Spurs fans that, are now suddenly back on the bandwagon. So Mike, I don't know if you got to hear this or not. I mean, this is the first time talking about really a hodgepodge of this NIL stuff.
Hmm.
What is your take on this NIL and the impact of college, football?
I'm for all of it. No idea how to police any of it. So that's where we are. I mean, you mentioned, Alabama is the only state in the SEC that does not have any regulations. How's that fair? That can't be fair to everybody else in that conference that does not play in that state. Yeah, I didn't realize that Kansas didn't have any laws either. So they have no rules. Great. It's going to be open season for a guy like Bill Self to do whatever he wants. Where Texas and Texas Tech are beholden to whatever the state decides, and that's I just don't see how that does not create a clear advantage for those states that don't have laws. But that being said, I'm
Okay,
a states' rights.
traffic
I'm
back up.
I'm a states' rights kind of guy, So I don't. The feds may have to intervene. It's unbelievable. Like this is problem is we're 50 years behind in all this stuff. We're we've finally decided to do the right things by these athletes. We just don't have any idea how to implement the regulations, which, and you knew this was going to happen. And this is a good thing. All these problems and these discrepancies, and this state's got this law, that state doesn't have this law. This is all good because we're in that early transition phase where something that's never been allowed before, something that's literally been considered illegal, immoral, that would get you kicked out of school, maybe even brought up on a lawsuit. Now it's all of a sudden okay. So it's
Oh, I
just,
know.
yeah, more than anybody. I mean, now all of a sudden, okay, great. Something that was, it's almost like prohibition. And all of a sudden, oh, never mind, booze is legal again, so y'all can sell it. Okay, how the hell do we do that? So we've been told for 100 years, don't do this, don't do that. Now we can because it's okay. And so that's why you're seeing all this discrepancy. And I think in the years to come, obviously, I hope anyway that everything shakes out. You were talking about, I think most people now, even people that I'm buddies of mine that were staunchly against NIL forever, even a lot of those guys are now starting to see, well, okay, that's fine, I get it. I mean, there's nothing you can do about it. It's done. We're going to have NIL forever. While you were talking, man, Do you remember a kid named I think it was Robert Traylor? He played basketball at
Mm,
Michigan. Yeah,
yeah.
I think it was Traylor. I'm not. I think Robert Traylor's. I think he's passed away. But anyway, I remember Traylor saying, he admitted 20 years ago. This goes back to the big O'Bannon case to try to get some rights for college basketball players. I'll never forget Robert Traylor saying once. He said, "Yeah, I took money. I did." It was Friday afternoon. My DM in the cafeteria on campus had run out. I weigh 300 pounds. I'm 6'9". I ate more food than I was allowed to eat in the mess hall. And so I'm like, well, I'm hungry. So he wanted to go down to the local burger joint and he wanted to get a fish sandwich. And so he's just scraping some change together. Let's see, I've got $1.59. Okay, cool. So he's walking down to the local burger joint there in Ann Arbor, and he's like 50 cents short trying to get the sandwich. And he's like, "Is it cool if I just go ahead and get the sandwich and I just owe you 50 cents?" They wouldn't sell him the sandwich. So he has to go back to campus, still hungry, no sandwich. And as he's walking across campus, he passes the Michigan Co-op, and there's his jersey for sale for $100.
That's right.
And he couldn't get a fish sandwich for $2. That's crazy. Something
Oh,
had
I
to be
know.
done. All I know is, man, I've got ideas on how we do some of this stuff. I have no idea if they're good. I just know that the good news is finally we're here, and like you said, and I mean, like you agree, we're just trying to figure out how the hell to regulate it now. And of course, the way everybody's switching conferences, it's like we can't catch up because it won't slow down. Now we're switching conferences. Now kids are transferring left and right, and then trying to regulate the NIL, it's just made it all the more difficult. So, man, I mean, I've got opinions, but very little answers at this point, man.
Well, it's interesting, in looking a little bit more because we're really in the first full cycle of NIL and what it means, including transfers.
Yeah.
So laws are starting to get a little bit clarified, but you can also read between the lines. Like I've got, where is this thing? The NCAA just came out right before everybody got back to school this month of basically like a Q&A.
Uh huh.
So here is what is going on. We know for sure with the NIL because they're going to answer the question that nobody asked. All right. Question number ones. Is it permissible to use an NIL with an entity closely associated with an institution? The answer is no. And there's a
Okay.
lot more here, but let's
Okay.
be honest. The Texas law actually defines a little bit more of that. Second
Uh-huh.
question.
Okay.
Are boosters or a collection of boosters permitted to have contact with prospective athletes and discuss potential NIL opportunities? Once again, the answer is no, but we know that's going on, right? I mean,
Sure.
these collectives are unreal. If you look at what's going up with Boomer Sooner up there, with every single kid getting an NIL deal from a collective, and what's going on even within Lane Kiffin's home state. I don't know why I'm on a Lane Kiffin kick.
Go
He's
for it.
entertaining as hell, but
And it
whatever.
will, because he's circumventing all he can,
Well, everybody is, right? I
Sure.
mean, it's the wild, wild west.
Sure.
But these type of things are, when they're asking, and it's only 2 pages, so there's not that many questions. It's pretty clear, what's going on. It's an interesting time. But the federal law, I don't know if you heard. Did you hear what I was telling you about the federal law that's out there?
Yeah. Yeah.
FTC violation.
Okay. Sure.
Wow.
I mean, it's so huge, man. At some point, this may sound ridiculous, but I don't know. Nothing really should be. Everything's on the table. It's almost like there needs to be some sort of branch of government now that's in charge of this, like the FCC regulates broadcasters. I
Right.
almost feel like we need some sort of body, certainly a committee, to come up with some sort of rules and regulations to make it fair for everybody, especially those that are in one conference.
Well,
It's crazy.
but we know how much that costs. I mean, and that's
Well,
one of the other things, right?
yeah, I know. Yeah, it's funny. So you mentioned Lane Kiffin. I'll just jump on that dog pile. So, look, my boy Jeff Traylor here in town at UTSA has pulled off a miracle. He's always griping about his assistants being low paid, and I give him crap. I said, "Well, you're the highest paid head coach in the conference. Why don't you take a pay cut, and pay some assistants?" I'm just giving him crap, but that's his problem. So he deals with, he's got low paid assistants. He has very low. He's got no full time on campus recruiting staff, which is crazy. And so that guy's players get called all the time because of how good they've been. Lane Kiffin, or somebody that knows Lane Kiffin, basically stole one of their best receivers who transferred
That's right.
last year to Ole Miss. Well, no, he didn't. No, Lane. No, the coaches didn't contact him. The
That's right.
NIL, the guy in charge of the NIL contacted him.
The
But
Grove.
how do you? Some Bubba in Mississippi never heard of this kid down in San Antonio. How did he know? Ole Miss coaches told him to do this. Traylor kids have gone to, and I'm using Traylor as an example because he's here in town. Kids have gone to Traylor and showed him, "Look, coach, I'm getting text messages from coaches here,
Oh, I bet.
and they're mentioning collectives. The
Yeah.
coaches are mentioning collectives, and Traylor doesn't give a blank. He just, you know what, give me that phone, and he'll take a screenshot of it, and he'll text those coaches and say, "I got you. I've got
Right.
the screenshot. You are lying to my kid. You never heard of him. But is that illegal? Is it unethical? Sure, maybe it's unethical, but not illegal. I mean, that's what Traylor's big gripe is. There's got to be some sort of way to make this against the rule, where there's some sort of punishment for just don't lie. Just come try to take my guys, but don't use an NIL as a he happened to come here because these rando guys
Right.
that love our school paid him to. Bullcrap.
Right. Oh, he got here because it was how
Yeah.
it's supposed to work, right? He got here. Oh, and then we gave him a deal.
Well, he just happened to
Really?
be
He
here.
just
Yeah.
showed up and you gave him a deal?
We might as well give him. Well, you might as well give him a scholarship since he's moving to town. How convenient for us.
That's
These are the
right.
things
That's
that
right.
right now, as I said, it's highly unethical. If that's your opinion, is it illegal? I don't know. And
Well, but
how do we
that's
regulate it? I
that's
don't
the
know.
interesting thing, right? And Saban's taken the position different even to this, which is collective bargaining, which I think
Yeah.
is a different type of approach, right?
Yeah.
Which basically now, the Wild Wild West is, Quint and everybody up in Austin, these quarterbacks are making more than NFL quarterbacks,
Sure.
from their NIL deals. Well, the rest of the quarterbacks in the country are going to be like, well, hold on, let's circle this thing up and create some rules from a collective bargaining type thing and what the benefits are. And that's a little bit different. But short of having a real heavy baseball bat, which is like an FTC violation, what is the punishment right now for doing it? You know, the spreadsheets that Lane has, the fact that Groven took the kid, you know, from UTSA. Okay, let's say somebody digs into it. I mean, you know, Michigan can't even get penalties on them until 2024.
Yeah.
So what's the penalty? And then these coaches can walk away, you know, some of them, and be like, oh, well, you know, Arizona State, you know, the penalties once guys are gone a couple of years back and these players are there. So I don't know. This is not a show for solutions.
No, there aren't
It's
any
more for
right now.
picking.
No, it's just a bunch of griping, but pointing out things I think that need to be pointed out as much as it can be for the betterment. I sound like a politician, for the betterment of college athletics. We need to find some regulations to rein some of this stuff in. And I don't blame Lane Kiffin, because he's kind of like what Jeff Traylor is in his conference. He's a middle of the pack school. They're just trying to win 9 games every year, and he's trying to get extensions at Ole Miss. So you bet your booty he's going to do everything he can, short of murder, to make his team better, whatever that means. And until someone tells him he can't do something, he's smart for doing it. You know, he's got, you know, those are a different set of problems in the SEC, but they're comparable, because I keep
Right.
mentioning Traylor, because, you know, Traylor's in the new conference now, and UTSA is a middle of the pack school financially in the AAC. I always get that wrong. And Lane's kind of in the same boat, just on that bigger level. So I told Traylor, well, hell, you should do it too. You know, you should try to poach kids from schools too. But it's tough. It's all tiered. Like Alabama's problems are Alabama's problems. LSU's got the same problems, but Baylor's got a whole set of different problems because they're Baylor. You know, and then you keep going
That's
down the
right.
run, just like UTSA, and then UTSA's got all these problems. So I don't know how you police it, as I mentioned earlier, the way, because of the conference shifting. I almost think we need to get some stability with the conferences, get that to slow down some, figure out what the next, because they're going to change the playoff format already, because they have to,
Right.
because of what happened out on the West Coast. Get that settled first. Tell me who's playing who and where. Then we can start regulating the NIL a little bit, because it's hard to tell USC you can do this, but you can't do that. Oh, then you flip conferences, and it's a whole new set of rules and ethics, and it's a cluster right now, man. And again, but we can't come up with solutions because it's not possible to right now. It's just all riding this crazy wave.
Well, let's talk about a positive thing, because there are some positives in the NIL. And, you know, from a community, I mean, I love San Antonio. I've raised here. I went to Incarnate Word. They didn't have football when I was there. They also had a different mascot. We won't get into that. But, you know, what we've seen with UTSA is the nonprofit, you know,
Yeah,
collective that's been brought together, which was also allowed under state law to be clarified here in 2023. And it was great to see, as a positive example, what we saw here in UTSA, you know, bringing that type of collective together for a community type recruitment, which is great.
yeah. I'll tell you right now. One of the things I have offered to do, just because I care, and I'm a San Antonian now too. Even though I'm from Fort Worth originally, and I'm a TCU man, but I've lived here long enough now where I love UTSA. You know, and I support them. I like their underdog status. And I have reached out to people that are members of a couple of the collectives in town. I've talked to some of the people on the I don't know what do you even call that. What do you even call those people that work for schools anymore that try to regulate the rules? I mean, they don't even know what their jobs are anymore either.
Compliance
Yeah, they
officers,
don't know what that means anymore. Compliance officers don't know what to comply with.
that's why
Uh,
they call themselves CO, because they don't really
Correct.
know what the
I
C
don't.
stands
Yeah.
for.
So I've reached out, and I have offered. I've any kid in the any athlete, doesn't have to be football, that wants to be a broadcaster or be a podcaster or go into media. Maybe we come up with some sort of way to give the kid a scholarship, and let them come intern with me on my YouTube channel, and you pay the kid to do it, and he comes and helps me as an intern. I'm just trying to be like a middleman, And the compliance people were like, I don't know if we can do that. They had to go look it up. Who knows? I mean, it's Wild West. It is, you can get away with as much as your brain can come up with. And I will see how it goes, because I just kind of started the wheels rolling on trying to help kids, but I'm not trying to get rich off the backs of college athletes. I'm just trying to help my friend Jeff Traylor, who's just trying to win as many games as he can and trying to get by the way he has, which has been a miracle. But that's just one example. I can't even imagine the different people that run law firms or run radio shows, or, as we know here in car dealerships, that are just trying to help the community, and
Right.
put a few bucks in a kid's back pocket, and you look at like UTSA. I guess UTSA will be our big talking point, I guess. It's not like 75 kids over there are making any money. They're not making
That's
any
right.
money. There's 2 or 3 kids at UTSA that are actually making any money. And Frank Harris is the quarterback. He signed a deal with a PR firm, and everyone just assumes, oh, he's loaded up. Yeah, you'd be shocked. It's not that
Yeah,
much.
I was going to say it wasn't a big dollar amount
No,
comparative to the type of season that he had, right? And that
correct,
was through a nonprofit that
correct,
they did
right,
it. But
right.
yeah, I mean, compared to his peers, right, with similar performance in other
Sure.
leagues, right? He's
Yeah,
way
yeah.
underpaid from a
Right.
value
So,
standpoint.
so at UTSA, it's not like we're trying to get kids Lamborghini money. We're just trying maybe help pay a light bill one month at the kid's apartment. That's all. Stuff like that, because no one over there is making any money. And so I guess you look at the scale where Memphis has an athletic budget of over $1.5 million. I think I saw. UTSA's athletic budget is 650,000.
Oh, wow.
UT makes that a month. It's just so until the dust settles on who's playing in what damn conference, it's hard to know what's fair, and it's hard to regulate. It's hard to regulate inside states, much less bringing the feds into it. But I do agree at some point we may have to. But then that creates a whole nother years long, committees versus committees and Democrats versus Republicans and all this kind of thing. And man, who knows where it's going? It's exciting as a fan, but and I try not to get jaded. Not like I'm I don't have all these inside sources, but I've talked to people. I see a few things that go on inside some of the 8 athletic departments. So as an outsider, as a fan, who cares? It's all just fun and games and entertainment. But when you put yourself in the shoes of the people that are really involved in it, these are people's lives. I've even there've been kids now that have left UTSA that called Jeff back. Can I come back? I want to change my mind. No, you
That's
haven't. You
right.
signed. You signed a contract with the T-shirt maker up there, and you're bound to it. Welcome to adulthood, man. And that's another thing. It's so crazy.
Well, and
Um,
and the legal part of those contracts are interesting too. So,
sure.
there's been some that have been circulated around because, breach of contract,
Hmm.
the tax implications for these
Yeah,
kids that they don't
they
realize.
don't know what they're doing.
The NCAA helped them out and said it's not for financial aid purposes compensation, but Uncle Sam goes, well, it's sure as heck income. So,
Yeah,
where's the withholding and all that sort of stuff that these kids are getting into?
sure.
But there's templates that are out there and stuff, within the lawyers that share stuff and things about like, you can't restrict them from leaving, but it basically says you'll be here for this date for these interviews or for this service or this talk or whatever. And if you're not, it's breach of contract, immediate termination with
Hmm.
clawbacks. So if somebody's watching this that's a kid that's thinking, here's what a clawback is. I give you money, but at the end of the day, if you breach it in a certain way that says I can claw it back, I can come back and get it.
Sure.
Can you
Absolutely.
imagine the more, and these things are cycling out there, and as one starts to take way in one side of the coast, it starts to go across like the spread offense, man. And it's going to end up in these contracts, and these kids are going to realize they're getting screwed.
Big time.
They're going to
Yeah.
be shown money and then handed an empty briefcase, or shown money and then taking the briefcase away when they get there. And there's a lot of dark stuff that kids are going to realize that happen in transactions when they just sign these deals.
That's right. Oh,
Um,
yeah.
so
Arch Manning has attorneys and handlers and agents and all these people that he did. I bet he never even he shows up, plays, shakes some hands, and cuts a commercial spot or whatever, takes a picture and puts it on Twitter, and he doesn't worry about it. But 99% of the athletes that we're talking about are not Arch Manning. You know, even and a lot of them played football at Texas. Kids
That's
that you
right.
and I will never hear of. That it was cool. I got $300 to go to this pizza joint. Oh wait, whoa, bro! I owe $80 in taxes. I'm behind. What is this? I
That's
got a
right.
penalty. That's the kind of stuff that it's going to have to get regulated. The Arch Mannings are always going to be fine. You know, this is the center fielder, the volleyball player. You know, even the backup quarterback, like Rashawn Wisdom. He's an all conference safety at UTSA. Signed a deal with Ansira, the car dealership, and when he signed that, that's good for him. But it's like the first thing that I thought of was, you know, like the dad in me was, okay, I hope he knows that there's taxes involved, and I hope he
That's right.
knows that now he owes these people at Ansira whatever it says in the contract. If you go and the other thing is, what if Rashawn Wisdom? I'm using him as an example. What if he decides he's going to transfer to Ole Miss? Hey, Bubba, you owe us 10 more commercials down here in San Antonio. Is he
Right.
able to get out of the deal? Is he beholden to that? It's crazy. That's where guys like you need to come up with the answers. I'm just sitting here waiting on
Oh man, I deal enough with healthcare, technology, real estate.
it. Yeah.
You know, we got clients that are in CBD. That is a whole lot more simpler than college football and all this. I mean, you know, the interesting aspect of this is the laws that are clarifying that it can't go to high school. But let's be honest, you know, these agents from a recruiting standpoint are allowed to represent you now going into college on these NIL deals.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Nick Saban gave somebody, some eighth grader I saw on, you know, whatever my feed was in there. You can't tell me an agent's not talking to him,
Of course
you
they
know?
are. Sure. And
And
how?
you know,
By
for
the
these
way,
bigger deals, I'll tell you, they're probably okay because they've got agents, right? But
yeah.
I mean, how many superstars have we heard in the last 30 years that have been, you know, taken and swindled by the financial people? Oh, Mike, did I lose you? Oh, there you are.
Hey, sorry. Live,
That's
live,
okay.
live, live radio, brother.
Hey, man, we're good with it.
Okay.
But you know, how many people, you know, signed a power of attorney and gave a financial person because, man, I don't know how to deal with this. You do that, and then they lost their money. I mean, there's just so much of this, and these are, you know, 20-year-olds that are losing it. Can you imagine the 17-year-olds that is dealing with that?
No.
Or man, can it get to the 12-year-olds?
I don't know, man. We're gonna have to look to, I don't know, Europe. I mean, Victor Wembanyama's been making money to play basketball since he was 16. What did they? How did they regulate that? How did they do that? Who helped Wembanyama? You know, and he's
Yeah,
Wemby, but I don't. I don't. I have no idea. There's got to be some guidelines that need to be put down, or if there's some out there. Again, I'm not trying to go see what France is doing with their laws, but Wemby's been getting paid since he was 16. Someone's been paying it. Tennis
right.
players make money underage. Celebrities make money underage. TikTokers, 14, 15-year-old TikTok stars and singers. And it's almost like Rock Nation's going to have to help the NCAA figure out how to relegate NIL because, they're in the entertainment business. It's almost like Hollywood needs to get
That's
involved here
right.
because they're used to dealing with actors that are underage and give us idiot college football fans, some guidelines on what to do here because it's all about fairness. You don't want it. I
Right.
don't again. I want, and I keep going back to the conferences. I want everybody in each conference to have to, because I'm a states' rights guy, and so that conference, that's your state. It's the state of the SEC. I just want everybody in that conference to play by the same rules, but
Yep.
no one seems to know what the hell they are. And of course, Bama lead the way there with that gray, which means no laws at all. Which I don't blame them. I don't. I'm not mad at them,
Hey,
but they
let's
just
be honest. There's
why
really probably not been laws in most of these states or anybody doing stuff. I mean, you know,
no.
Cam Newton's dad. I mean, he just got paid for I'm not sure what, right? So who knows? The
Who
question
knows?
is the Wild West. Let me ask you this:
Yeah.
um, what do you think is the impact with the reorganization of these conferences within the state of Texas. Because next year, right, you got A&M, Texas in the SEC, right, which is hyper competitive. It is big dollars,
Sure.
that's going on there. Then you've got your alma mater, right? You've got Baylor, you've got Tech. These are great schools, great traditions. Living here just on the recruiting side of what it is within the same state, what do you
Yeah.
think at that point in time?
Well, again, I think it's going to have to be that's where regulation comes in from the NCAA, or maybe there's a future governing body that just does college football that's going to have to be created at some point, because Texas and Mary Hardin Baylor should not be under the same state rules. If Texas is playing in the SEC and Mary Hardin Baylor is playing Abilene Christian, you just cannot have the same regulations for those two schools. So this, when I say states' rights, I mean conference rights.
Yeah.
There's got to be, and I mean, I don't know what you think about this, and of course, colleges have to think about all their sports, and it's easy just to talk football. I think we got to have some sort. I mentioned the government committee, and the NCAA, man, oh man, I'm almost ready to have. I think I am for there to be some sort of a governing body, a parliament, a Congress that handles college football, and then everybody else is kind of all the other sports get regulated some other way. It's just that's the difference in the
That's
money.
interesting to divide it up because, I mean, college football is a different, I mean, college baseball is pretty close. Basketball's smaller, right?
Yeah,
It's got the same problems, but at least from a number of athletes, it's a smaller number, right? I don't
right.
have, 150 to 75 at one program across, at all these things.
Mm-hmm.
But like LSU, and her name is escaping me, right? That the gymnast that, has got several $1 million of NIL deals that is there.
Mm-hmm.
That is a different type of animal that the NCAA probably can deal with, these smaller ones.
Sure.
But college football, it's just too much money for the
Yeah.
kids, for the universities, for the sponsors,
Yeah.
for
Mm-hmm.
Vegas. I mean, everybody, right? That is big money in every single way. You're right.
Yeah.
It's probably got to be something different.
I think we need a National Collegiate Football Athletic Association that handles football. And you're going to have people are going to bitch about that too. Well, that's not fair. This isn't. No, it's not. It's not. It's not a university anymore. These kids are paid athletes. They're here because of football, not because of science. Football's become such a monster, and I think about some of the soccer leagues over. I mentioned Europe again, just kind of as a guideline. Leo Messi signed with Barca when he was 13 years old. And he was such a little bitty kid. The first thing they did to him when he got over there, they start pumping him with HGH because it's not immoral there.
That's
So
right.
how has La Liga in Spain managed all these teenage kids all these years? They have one body and it just handles football, soccer, and they
Well,
don't worry about the
here's an
other stuff.
interesting thing, and this is just brainstorming because you bring that up. Let's talk
Yeah.
about Lionel Messi and soccer.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different than all of our other sports because you have to pay for the value of that contract
Yeah.
when you move them over, right? So there's the
Yeah.
salary that gets paid, plus
Mm-hmm.
there's the actual value, which that boggles some people's mind. When I mean, I'm an Arsenal fan, so in English Premier League, I mean, we just had one of the highest English transfers ever, and we had to pay the other club for the right to then pay him every single week his salary.
Yeah. It's like the Japanese baseball rule. To even negotiate with Otani, you had to give his club over there, the Hanshin Tigers or whoever, $30 million just to talk to him. Maybe we're headed that way. I'm a
But
proud
what's
American,
interesting,
but
if we went to that way, is
yeah,
my state of Alabama, they would not have money to pay taxes, but they would pay their university to have
sure,
them have those
sure, yeah.
contracts.
I mean, I'm a proud American, but I look to Japanese baseball and La Liga soccer because they've been doing this kind of stuff for a long, long time, and maybe they've got the at least part of the remedy or some of the the medicine on how we need to regulate here. I think we all agree at the end of the day there's got to be some regulation. That's just the right thing. But then you get into what does that look like? And then I propose we have I think college football needs a FIBA. It needs something like that, to regulate it apart from the NCAA. That all these college football programs agree to abide by based on the conference they're in, and that's how it's going to be. I mean, we're headed toward a tier. We have a tier system in college football anyway.
We basically do.
We're down to two power conferences, the Big Ten and the
Right.
SEC. We're going to have a tier two and a tier three at some point. And soccer comes to mind. There's relegation. And if Nottingham Forest does not get enough points, they're going to get knocked to the second level of the English soccer tiers. Wild West, brother. I mean, all this stuff. I think it's all possible. It's all something that somebody that has more power than you and me needs to look at pretty soon.
That's right. That's right. I agree. Mike, I cannot thank you enough for coming on. Before I lose you,
yes, sir.
All right, I need just two predictions from you, if you don't mind.
Oh, gosh.
I mean, this is what you do on a daily basis.
I hate it.
Number one, tell me who's going to win the Big 12.
Gosh. Earlier in the show, I made fun of the media in this state for always being biased toward Texas. This is the most talented team Texas has had since Mac Brown was the coach. I like Steve Sarkisian. There's only 4 or 5 guys in the country that could go to Austin and actually win with all the crap that you have to deal with at Texas and all that comes with being the UT football coach. I think Sark's the right guy there. I believe in Quinn Ewers. I'm here be trying to talk myself into Texas as the pick.
Yeah.
I think Texas will win the Big 12. But I also think 5 other schools can too, including my Frogs, who I think are better on paper overall. Now, we lost Max Duggan. That's huge. But collectively, pound for pound, TCU's as talented, if not more. I have no idea. I have no idea these outsider schools. I can't tell you who the quarterback at BYU is. So take my opinion with a grain of salt. I think the Longhorns break through finally and win the conference for the first time in a decade. I think Texas is the pick.
All right. And so along that same line, see, I thought you would pick your Frogs on this second.
No, I'm not a homer. I'm realistic.
Okay. So the real kickoff of college football for me is next weekend when, Texas goes to, like any other away game, to Tuscaloosa. Ridiculous. Wait till you get there. Wait till you see where we're going to put your band, Texas. It ain't going to be in an upper deck.
I said Texas would win the Big 12, not beat Alabama. Those are different.
Okay. So is that your prediction? I got a loss in Tuscaloosa,
sure.
Even though the production is there. Oh, man, you were a good guy. You just make my heart feel so good.
They're better, but they're not beat Bama and Tuscaloosa better. No way.
Well, and Quint Ewers is not Johnny Manziel. I'm sorry.
No,
he's a good quarterback, but remember last time we roughed him up. Wait till he's got everybody coming to rough him up this time.
Sure, absolutely. I think the Longhorns better get their stuff together real quick because they're going to be Ole Miss for the next 15 years. They're going to be Missouri if they don't get their stuff together and start coaching their teams up. Good recruiting teams, but you can't win the Big 12. Good luck in the SEC, man. Good luck.
Well, they've had they've had good recruiting classes there at Texas, but Mac he could recruit them, but he couldn't coach them, which is not true because look at what he did, right? Yep. That became the later excuse, and they kept that going. But when you jump into the SEC, I mean, everybody's fighting. I mean, it's just crazy, and you don't have. Which is a great story. Max Duggan was a phenomenal story. And I mean, I was rooting for him, not just because he was going against the Dogs that I wanted to lose, but I mean, just what a great story. You don't get those kind of runs really in the SEC where you can jump to the top of the league that fast. No. I mean, even Johnny Manziel with his historical run, he didn't make it. I mean, you get a feel good, but you can't, and they're going to have to be dominant. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do.
I think they're going to be Missouri for the next 10 years.
Knock on wood, man. Knock on wood. They're
going to get a lot of money. They're going to cash out like Johnny did.
Well, Mike, thanks so much for coming on. Man. This has been great. I've really enjoyed doing this. Enjoyed talking to you. Thank you so much for coming on.
You bet, man. Y'all have a good day. See ya.
All right, brothers. We'll catch you later.
See ya.
So, for everybody else here, thanks for joining us on the South Texas Power Lunch Special Live Edition. We're going to be doing some more of this. I promise I'm not going to just banter on about college football as much as I love it, like I'm sure most of you do. But check us out here. You know, our mission is to educate, advise, and support every small, medium sized business and startup in Texas. And, you know, while we are excited about the NIL, we've got a lot of tools and education that we do for small, medium sized business owners that can help your company not have to pay these costly legal bills and be proactive on what they're dealing with. So if you haven't subscribed to us, jump on those subscriptions so you can get notified of our live and also our pre-recorded podcast. Also jump on social media there. There's a QR code. Jump on there so that way you can get all the information we're doing, including some NIL, Chat GPT, AI stuff that we're following, the more sexier things that we like to talk about, but also those day-to-day things of what you're dealing with on employment, independent contractors, financings, those sort of things. We'll catch you guys in another 2 weeks for our next episode. We'll see you then.